Hey, what's going on, guys? Ryan Hodge with FantasyLabs.com here, and I want to take a first look at Week 6. We did a recap yesterday. If you haven't seen that, check it out on the channel. And today, I want to spend a little bit of time just kind of going over that first look, that first gut take, taking a look at salaries. We'll browse through a couple of the Fantasy Lab positional player models and just take a look at Vegas and kind of just comb through this and really just give you guys my first take, my first opinion. I think sometimes it's helpful to just look at it. You don't have to get hung up on it. I think it's more important to review and study, early on in the week than it is to start building lineups and doing research. I don't do a lot of my research until like Thursday, Fridays, and really start building around Friday, Saturday. So that's just me. You guys obviously do you, whatever works. But yeah, take a look at the quarterback position here. We get Patrick Mahomes, Kyler, Lamar. Lamar smashed on Monday Night Football. We get Herbert, Rodgers, Prescott, Stafford, Joe Burrow, and that's kind of where it then starts to dip into some of these guys who maybe aren't playable, except I think Heineke is playing Kansas City. Yeah, so look, last week a little thin at quarterback, right? It was basically if you didn't play Brady or if you didn't play Justin Herbert, you had a very difficult time getting a top 1%, shipping anything. And this week, it looks like it could definitely be a little bit different. A lot more options here. Let's take a look at my quarterback model. I bet you Heineke ranks really high. Yeah, opponent plus minus of 9. Kansas City is just giving it up to quarterbacks and to wide receivers here. So Terry McLaurin rating pretty high in my model as well. And then you've got Patty Mahomes, Stafford, Herbert, Kyler Murray. So all of that stuff makes sense. My model weights opponent plus minus pretty heavily here, which is basically just the amount of points a position is allowed to a specific uh, position. Sorry, the opponent plus minus is like what the defense is allowed to a specific position, and it measures it based off the strength of the opponent, and so it adjusts for that as well. So it's not just like how many fantasy points has X team allowed two quarterbacks. Great, they're allowing on average 27 and a half. Well, what if they've played like four really, really good quarterbacks in a row or something like that, right? So this does measure the strength of the unit as well as the position. So it's a great statistic or a great data point that I love to use. So back over to DraftKings here. Kyler against Cleveland. You know what's interesting? Kyler continues to be priced up, but I don't think he's won anyone anything for like 3 weeks in a row. I think he had two really good weeks, right? If we just do a little bit of game log surfing here. Yeah, 34 and 38. And since then, I mean, they've been playing really good football, but Kyler is just not getting there in the passing game. And at that price, it's very, very difficult to continue to play him. I think that's probably when you start to play him is when his ownership starts to get low again. So what's crazy, man, is Heineke is immediately standing out. I did a first look with Joe Hoka on FanDuel yesterday, so I kind of had an idea just a little bit what to expect. But this is a true first look at DraftKings. I have not fired up the DraftKings NFL lobby. I've just been playing esports the last 2 days, so let's take a look. I mean, Heineke, like I said, that opponent plus minus, I think he has like at least 25 rush yards in every single game. Rushing 40. Oh, okay. So just the last couple weeks, he's had at least 20. But I mean, I wouldn't count this one. So yeah, like I don't know. Last 3 games, two above 40. Take a look back at the model at Heineke here, who just is hashtag popping in the model. Yards per completion, yards per attempt. Take a look at a couple different advanced stats here on Heineke. On target percentage, 67. Air yards thrown, 1,271. I mean, this is for the entire season. Let me filter this down to just like weeks 3, 4, and 5. Sorry, I have this off screen, so you guys aren't really getting a good look at this. But I'll just give you some of the stats here. So yeah, 840 air yards thrown, which is better than like Ryan Tannehill. It's better than Kyler Murray. But it's obviously not up there. Like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Herbert, Mac Jones, some of these guys were like 1,000 plus, but 840 is pretty healthy. Air yard conversion percentage, 43%. That's not bad at all. So yeah, like he's only taken 3 sacks, where you have guys like Sam Darnold, Aaron Rodgers, sack percentage at 3, press sack. So like, I don't know, man. Heineke just seems like in a really, really good spot in this matchup. I think he might end up being a cash game quarterback this week. So we'll have to take a look at ownership. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate towards this game. You have Kansas City's implied team total at 31 and their implied team total at 24. So like they're very healthy too. And over under at 55. Let's take a look at the live. It's the highest over under of the game. Yeah, I mean this is chalk for sure. They're probably there. You just have too many skill players that are easy to use. You've probably got a really cheap tight end in Ricky Seals Jones. He's still minimum. I mean, or not minimum, but I like that's just very, very, very cheap tight end at 3K. I bet you that's chalk. So I think Heineke's probably going to be a popular cash game, chalk a little bit, but he might be one of those guys where he alleviates and relieves so much salary. Sorry, I had to get a sip of coffee in there. So you can pay for some of these wide receivers because running back this week, let's take a look at DraftKings. We're gonna have a couple free squares at running back. So let's take a look. Who pops at running back? There's Darrell Henderson, 6K against the Giants, really good opponent plus minus. Darrell Williams against Washington, good opponent plus minus. Swift has, I think, leads the league in running back high value touches, so touches within the 5 and 10 yard, or opportunities in the 5 and 10 yard line. That's a metric that Ben Gretch uses a lot. Love his work. Shout out the homie Ben Gretch. Austin Eckler getting the goal line work, which is just absolutely insane. I mean, turning this guy into an absolute monster. The amount of opportunities that he's getting from targets and rush attempts, as well as just the work inside the 5 and 10 has been absolutely nutty for him. Javonte Williams showed his speed. Jonathan Taylor, 6,600 against Houston. Wow. All right. 6,600 against Houston. So, and I think there's a pretty clear gap this week or tier drop off. CMC probably is going to play. I mean, his status was kind of even up in the air last Sunday, so it looks like he's on track to play, but I just don't know if I'm playing a uncertain $8,800 running back, although it is CMC. So if he's playing, he's probably fine. But Eckler against Baltimore at 7,900 is probably the most expensive running back that I'll be looking at this week with the big dog on a bye. Dalvin Cook's still's question is up in the air, so we'll have to monitor his practice all week. Aaron Jones is like legit in a timeshare. I mean, what was that AJ Dillon work that we saw coming out on Monday? Nick Chubb getting a little bit more work again, but honestly still sharing time with Kareem Hunt. You've got Barkley doubtful, and then it's just a very, very tough matchup um, for Devonta Booker against the Rams. I mean, they just have not been friendly towards running backs. So like I think that's a tough matchup. Or sorry, they've been okay against running backs. I would honestly have to go see who they've played. Opponent plus minus here does say plus 1.9. So that probably to me tells me that they haven't played very tough running backs, but I will genuinely need to go look and just kind of confirm some of that. So like the Devontae Booker's free square, I think is a tough one to swallow at $5,400, where Damian Williams at $5,800, or I mean, sorry, Darrell Williams at $4,900 against Washington, I think is probably the better free square. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it shapes up a little bit this week. But my point being here is like I just think there's a kind of a drop off. I think it's Eckler, and then like there's not a lot until you really get down to Taylor, Gibson, Swift, and then I think Joe Mixon is in an absolute smash spot. So I'm surprised that he doesn't rate high in my model. That one, where is Joe? It's kind of 73.57. Oh, maybe he does, and I just missed him. No, he's down here a little bit, but against Detroit, like I mean, 4.2, uh, or I mean, yeah, where is he? Right there, 4.2 opponent plus minus. I mean, running backs against Detroit are just absolutely smashing. That might be the highest running back opponent plus minus. Okay, just before Las Vegas, which both of these guys in a timeshare, I think these are extremely tough running backs to play. You got to be throwing a dart in a milli maker and hope Javonte just busts one for 80 into the end zone, right? On some like one of those random ones where it's like 3rd and 2 and they're down there on their own 15 and the box is just stacked, so he gets through the secondary and he's got one guy to beat. That's how you turn those 80-yard TDs. 78.49 in the rating. That has to do with opponent plus minus coupled with salary, and then probably a little bit of a floor projection here at 8. So I don't know about that. Definitely not going to go super hard on Javonte Williams, that's for sure. But I think the free square running back, I think a lot of people will say is Booker, is Devontae Booker, or is Williams, but like Joe Mixon, $6,400 with Pirine on the COVID list. Like the amount of work that this guy could get against Detroit, which is just an insane matchup. So I would expect a lot of Joe Mixon chalk right out of the gate. And I don't know if I'm gonna really dip down to anyone other than Williams. I just don't think that you have to mess around with the Chase Edmonds or a Latavius Murray or even Damian Williams, who kind of gave up a little bit of work to Khalil Herbert there as well, which I was not quite projecting. I thought he was going to be much closer to like a 70 to 75% back. Daryl Henderson at 6K, like these guys' workload has just been so good. So like I just don't know how with the tier drop off. Okay, I'm not a cash game player. I have not registered a cat other than like some degen late slate scooping some guys 215 or whatever just because I saw it. Like I have not registered a legitimate cash game slate in a very long time. But to me, right out of the gate, this feels like insane opportunity. You have some free squares. Like I don't know, maybe I'm building the most donkey lineup ever here, but like to me, this just seems like the place to go. So I mean, not Baltimore. I was just choosing a cheap defense. We'll choose Houston, and then Ricky Seals, and then I'm not going to do all the wide receiver stuff, but I bet you Kadarius Toney is super cheap. Oh, 56. He's not. Let's transition into wide receiver and take a look. He's not expensive, but I was thinking maybe 45, 4,800 after he was 4K last week, but coming up to 56, definitely making you think about it, that's for sure. So Jamar Chase getting a little bit of a price hike at $6,700. I would be reluctant to play Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase in the same lineup unless it's a full onslaught stack in some small field tournament with Burrow and running that back with Hawkinson or some random Detroit wide receiver. But you can see here, I think wide receiver at the high end is much more appealing than running back at the high end. And so I think that's where people might gravitate towards a lot of those mid-range and free square running backs than they will playing a guy who's uncertain like CMC and Cook. Obviously, it's recording this Tuesday morning, so a lot can change over practice on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday walkthroughs, etc. So T. Higgins $5,300. Like this, I will still continue to go back to T. Higgins on the receiving end here, over Jamar Chase. I don't know if that's a sharp play or not, but I just think he's a lot more expensive than a $5,300 player. Hopefully the work will come a little bit. He's got a good bargain rating, 43%, opponent plus minus, which against Detroit, see, this just seems strange. This is where I trust this number, but I definitely have to go. I go and I confirm it. CD Lamb, Cowboys are running the ball so much. It's so hard to swallow that. DJ Moore is still getting a ton of work. A little bit of a letdown last week for sure. This has got to be a price thing in my model. $3,400 against Van Jefferson being $3,400. It's got to be a price thing. Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen, Robert Woods, rounding it out. Robert Woods, number one wide receiver early on in the model. Keep in mind, these are not my projections. These are the Sean Corner's default projections. So this could definitely all change once I run my sims and change my market share of targets and stuff like that and get all of that imported with how I think these games are going to play, or get my projections imported. McCole Harbin, Jacoby Myers, kind of rounding out the model. But if we go back to DraftKings here, back to wide receiver, yeah, Robert Woods probably in play here at $6,100. I mean, I think a lot of people, that island game, he just got an insane amount of work. Kadarius Toney and Kenny Golladay being literally $100 from one another. So look, I think the Kadarius Toney thing is absolutely in play. Kind of looking to see how salaries are going to round out, and with how depleted those wide receivers have been, I just think that if they continue to stay a very, very thin wide receiver corps, Kadarius Toney is the real deal. So a lot of talent there, and if he's going to get the volume, I don't think you can project him for 13, 14 targets or whatever he had. Let's take a look here. Let's just take a look at 4 and 5 for Kadarius Toney, weeks 4 and weeks 5. You know what? I actually may not have weeks 5 routes run yet. I don't think I do. Yeah. Shoot. So I'll have to check that back in a little bit. But he ran a ton of routes and saw a lot of work, an insane amount of work. We can just game log surf. They'll have his targets here. 13 targets. Yeah, I think you can project him maybe for like 9. If that wide receiver corpse stays super, super thin. So maybe not Robert Woods here too much as far as like a quote unquote cash game lineup would go. I really, really think that you're going to want to play one of these high end wide receivers this week. High end probably starting at maybe McLaurin and above. So like I think that's where I would start, is like this type of, like, this immediately turns into more of a tournament lineup except for ownership. But as far as correlation goes, is definitely a little bit more of a tournament lineup. We would obviously want to get to Tyreek Hill here, so we would probably have to get off of Austin Eckler and eat a free square at running back. But yeah, I think you're definitely going to want one of these high-end wide receivers, or at least that's just how it's shaping up early in the week. We'll see with practice reports and who's missing what. Pittman at $5,500 saw an insane amount of work last Monday Night Football, so I think that could definitely be viable against Houston there. And yeah, it just starts to really tail off, and this is where I'll just kind of use my model rating and points per salary at wide receiver to see what values look like. Robert Woods popping in value, Van Jefferson. Devontae Adams still a good value just due to his projection, even though he is the most expensive wide receiver on the slate. T. Higgins at $5,300. Like I said, he is just not a $5,300 wide receiver in any way, shape, or form. He should be 6K, even with the workload. And when his workload it gets up there, look, I think come week 8, week 9, he'll start to creep into that 6 to 6,300, maybe even a little bit higher. He's just an extremely talented receiver, and as he continues to get work, I think him and Jamar Chase will go back to where they were regards to salary, with being so close to one another. T. Higgins might be 6,500, Jamar Chase might be 67, etc. So yeah, let's jump into the tight end position here. And I think RSJ here at 3K is probably the stone cold chalk. A little bit of a teardrop again with Kelsey and Waller, kind of what we expect at the wide receiver position. Mark Andrews finally saw the work and volume and red zone stuff. Just, couldn't convert a lot of the red zone work that he was getting into a touchdown, and then he comes up with 2 on Monday Night Football. Hockenson against Cincinnati, I think that makes sense for game stacks, 5K. So much for Hockenson seeing 10, 11 targets every week. But I think for game stacks, that's totally fine. Dalton Schultz getting work. Is infuriating because you have CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper on your team, Dak Prescott. So let's throw them the ball a little bit more, please. I think Higbee right out of the gate might make the most sense from a price point if you're not going down to a Conklin or Ricky Seals-Jones. I think that makes him the most sense to me. Like, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on tight end. I think you pay up or pay down. But in that mid-tier range, Higbee is the first one that pops. Let's see what the player model says. Kelsey, Conklin, RSJ. Yep, there's Hockenson, Higbee. So, yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot to discuss there. Let's take a look at opponent plus minus. Who's the best matchup of the week? Our Chargers. Good luck with that lottery. Mo Alley Cox, you can ride some of the momentum there. He's getting targeted. I think he's seeing some good high value targets too. I'll have to check that. Noah Fant with the 6 pro trends, averaging at least 3 receptions per game. Probably got a good opponent plus minus. Floor at least 6 points. High implied team total for a tight end as well is a trend that I've put in there at a 24-point implied team total. And are they a home favorite? They are. They are a 3.5-point home favorite against Vegas. So all of those things tend to correlate well with tight ends. But Ricky Seals-Jones Jr. is probably the play at tight end at 3K against Kansas City. Good opponent plus minus, good implied team total. They are a dog, but I'm okay with that for that price. So yeah, look, I think, quick little lineup builder here. I'm just gonna kind of build one that starts to make sense a little bit. Even though this is probably going to be a little bit of chalk, I think if you do an onslaught, okay, I think if you do some sort of an onslaught like that and you do Hill, this might suppress your overall ownership in general, even though all of these players will probably project for a decent individual ownership. When you're playing in some smaller field stuff, you do these onslaughts, it can just suppress the total ownership when you're playing all of them together. Just a little bit. Like, it's still going to be chalk. I can almost guarantee you this is going to be pretty chalky. And you could do the onslaught with Williams as well for a free square, but like I said, I would just go back to Joe Mixon and Henderson at this work. I mean, that's just way too cheap for the amount of work that they're seeing. Literally going to play Houston against Indy at 2,200. And then I'll leave it at that per DraftKings, user guidelines or terms of services or whatever. But you guys can get a general idea here. You can play a Kadarius Toney, or you can do a Van Jefferson if you wanted more of that Rams game. But like, we just sort points per dollar here. Van Jefferson, Michael Pittman, $5,500. He would have worked. Mooney seeing some good air yards. I don't know what his air yards were last week, but the week before they were pretty good. Odell Beckham is dead to everyone, so that means he probably goes off this week. $5,900 Marquise. So here's a Zack Pascal at $4,400. That's kind of, I'm trying to find like a 4K-ish wide receiver who's getting a little bit of work, so that way we have a little bit more in our flex, like 6K rather than 5,500 or something like that. So you could do the full onslaught. You could go with McCole Hardman. you know, I would probably do something like that. That once again will suppress the overall ownership, and that leaves us with 6,800 in our flex. And I'll let you guys figure it out from there. But you now have some good options. A lot of volume to be had here. You know, so, but yeah, hopefully that first look was helpful. Leave a comment down on the below if there's anything else that you want me to cover in the first look. I could do these a little later in the week when I have more data, and we could go over like air yards and market share of opportunities. I just know you guys like to see these ASAP and get that kind of first gut feel. But yeah, if there's anything else that you want me to cover in these, drop a comment down below, or let me know who you think is undervalued. Let me know who you think the chalk is going to be on a Tuesday. I mean, it's always fun to kind of just take that prediction, and if they end up not being chalky, maybe the field's wrong, right? Maybe it's a player who should be chalk. Like if for some reason Joe Mixon isn't chalk this week, I think the field is going to be. I think the field would be wrong to assume that, because I think playing Joe Mixon against Detroit is just an absolute smash spot with P Ryan on the COVID list. So I would, you know, bet literally my house and car that Joe Mixon is one of the most popular running backs coming into the week. So with that said, I will see you guys in the quarterback preview. Keep an eye out on the channel for that. It usually drops Thursday, Friday, and don't forget to subscribe. Peace.